we are going to be talking about bringing coaching into your leadership style, what coaching is and why it's different. And we're also going to be talking about what it's not, so you can get a really good crystal clear idea about how it fits into the scheme of different support mechanisms that you might be familiar with. We're going to look at some leadership styles and different behaviors within that. And we're going to look at changing your mindset for a coaching mindset. And we'll also touch on some strengths-based approaches, because that's actually a really important part that I bring into the coaching as well. So we're going to touch on that. And you would have all received prior to the session a worksheet that you get to keep that, and you can use it at any time. You can use it with any of your team members, and you can identify different strengths and weaknesses, mostly strengths, for yourself and for others as well. So it's a really, really good tool to have in mind, but it's also really good to support us through the coaching aspects. We're going to look at some coaching conversations as well, do a couple of little role plays. And if we've got time, we'll do a bit of goal setting, but we may not have time to go through that, but that's okay. And then we'll have a bit of a wrap up. So hopefully that's all pretty clear what we're going to be doing. So anyway, let's get going. We'll start with what coaching is not. And I want to be clear, because coaching is actually not training. It's not counseling, and it's not mentoring. When you train somebody, you're imparting knowledge and skills to do a particular job. And that's usually like a one-off program, a one-off training program, where the recipient learns a new skill and then they go off and they apply that to their work. When you counsel somebody, you're basically looking at a different set of skills, and you look at the past to where that shows up in the current point in time. And then you start to analyze events that have happened in the past, that have occurred, and then how they start to show up in your life. And then you get some help in terms of how you overcome that. And mentoring is when somebody is sharing their wisdom with another person as it relates to their journey. That helps them sort of overcome challenges as they grow and develop. And often what they'll do in a mentor role is they'll open up their networks and they'll share supporting direction for that individual. And it often can involve how to do something and about giving advice. Now, when you coach someone, you actually don't give advice. It sounds really, really strange, but generally speaking, when you go to true form of the International Coach Federation guidelines, you don't actually give advice. So you don't tell the person that you're coaching what to do in like a training session or a counseling scenario or a mentoring scenario. However, in the way that I do it, I actually do close the coaching session. And then if there's something burning that I think the coachee would benefit from immensely, then I ask permission to share that at the end. The reason that you have to do this is because the individual that you're coaching is actually on their own journey. And so if you start to try and tell them what they need to be doing, you start to change the journey and the agenda that they're working towards. So it's actually a really, really important part about coaching. So coaching is always conducted in a really safe and secure environment. We talk always about, you don't need to do this with your team members, but we talk about the code of conduct that the ICF stresses, and that is to work in a confidential, secure and safe environment. And the reason for that, again, is because you do actually get really deep with people, and they need to feel that they're in a safe space where they can really open up to you. And if they feel that other people are listening or that you're judging them, they're not going to get the best out of the session. So it's a really important part of the coaching. Now, I must mention that Anne has put the workbook into the chat box. So if you've got that, do grab it, have it at hand for yourself, because while I'm going through this, I will send you the slides, but you might want to just make a couple of notes as you're going. If there's anything that comes up to you, you think, oh, I really want to grab that message. Coaching can also involve a third person, and that person's usually like the sponsor of the coachee. So it might be a manager, and they want to help define the goals and the objectives that coachee wants to, they want that coachee to work on. So if it's somebody who their KPIs are have been set, and they actually want them to work towards reaching those KPIs, then that third party person might be saying, as to the coach, I want this coachee to learn these particular skills or work on these particular areas. And so in some cases there can be that third party there, but for you, in the context of applying this in the workplace with your own teams and people, then it's usually just between the two of you. So when we're looking at bringing that coaching into your leadership style, it's really about learning the skills of coaching so that you can help that team member achieve their goals and establish their career progression or new adventures or whatever they want to do, that you're trying to help them on that journey with. So does that make sense to everybody? Has anybody had any coaching themselves in the past, any formal coaching? It's probably going to be quite a new concept to you. I mean, it sounds, there's a lot of people out there who claim to be coaches, but in reality, in terms of being officially trained, then they're probably not really coaches in the true sense. The International Coach Federation is the closest that it comes to regulating that industry. So there are a lot of people out there who claim, yes, I'm a coach, but actually, like I said, they don't really practice the coaching in the true way that you're going to get an insight for that today. So Alison, you had coaching. Would you agree then that what I've explained about the coaching is fair to say in terms of your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I've also wondered, I wish you'd give me some answers or tell me what to do. But in fact, it's more about asking me what I think, leading me to the right resources to then develop my own journey, as you say.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel that sometimes when I'm working with people, I feel that they're just dying for me to say, well, what would you do? What have you done in the past? And it's a really difficult situation to be in. And whenever you get asked that question, the answer is always, what do you think? If you ask me that question, what do you think I would tell you? So you still always spin it back to the individual again. But like I said, at the end, I just tend to say, right, now I'm closing the session. Let's have a talk about what I observed, give them some feedback and, with their permission, and give them some other tools. So you can really sort of expand it and sort of, sway it a little bit like that. But anyway, so, I think generally speaking, any goals or challenges that your teams have actually got and they're trying to navigate, they can be addressed through a leadership style that does incorporate coaching. And coaching is also aimed at inspiring that team to make those behavioral changes that transform themselves and the people around them, thereby increasing business results and performance. So it's not just about them, but it's also about what they're doing in terms of the business. And importantly, really importantly, it's about taking the time at the moment. So what is your present moment? And then looking forward. So we talked a bit about counseling, which is when you look back and you say, what's happened in the past? Where am I now? It's not about that. It's actually taking the stake in the ground, where you are today and where do you want to get to? So it's about taking that current reality and transforming those individuals into the new reality that they or the organization desire to be successful. And that skill of coaching is about drawing out that inner and untouched capability and skill that lays dormant in that team member. So you can really awaken that giant within them. And as you practice this style, you're going to relish in actually watching them flourish and grow. It's the most rewarding thing that you can do, honestly, as a leader. It's just so rewarding. And this is all achieved through the use of these coaching skills that discreetly draw on your experience and help your team members dig deep and create that incredible change in the workplace. Now, I want to ask you a question. And the question is, you might often hear people in your team say they feel stuck. So does anyone ever come to you and say, hey, I'm really, I just don't know what to do. I'm really stuck. I'm bored with this COVID stuff, or I'm bored with working from home, or whatever it is. I'm really stuck. And when you respond to that, what typically would you answer to that question? When someone says to you, I'm stuck, what normally happens for you when they say they're stuck or they're frustrated or they've hit a brick wall? If I said to you now, hey, I'm actually feeling really stuck and frustrated and I've hit a brick wall, what would you say to me?
I think I'd ask more questions. I'd want to understand what's making you feel that way.
Yeah.
What is it you're stuck with? How does that make you feel? How do you think that's come about?
Yeah.
Just to try and understand more.
Yeah. That's perfect. That's really good. Anybody else? Do you ever feel a burning need to want to try and sort of solve the problem for them? It's like with your kids, you always want to, they say, Mummy, I can't do this, I can't do that. And just do it this way, do it that way. But you're kind of going, it's just that default thing that we do, right? We always want to solve everybody's problems. So I'm not sure if you feel like that, but sometimes that's how we tend to sort of fall into those traps. So, it's really good to hear that you'd ask more questions, and that's absolutely the right thing to do. But yeah, it's quite interesting because some people might just say, yep, I want to know a few more questions. Others might say, you know what, just go and talk to somebody who can help you figure it out. And then when you figured it out, come back and talk to me in a few days, and we'll talk about how you need to get through that. Or, you know, some people might offer a shoulder to cry on. They want to listen to that person's problems, you know, all those sorts of things. So if any of those things are familiar with you, just drop that why in the chat box, or anything else that might sort of come to mind when you're in that moment with somebody.
I think I'd say I know that I have a really bad habit of saying, especially after you do the follow-up questions, probably for falling more into that mentoring space, or worse off, making it about me, like, oh, when I've gone through that, I do this, or this is how I've dealt with something similar. So almost like, yeah, definitely taking it away from coaching.
Yeah. And it's our natural go-to, it's our natural instinct, because I think as leaders, we've got so much more experience and we know the answers to the problems that people have. So it's very easy to be able to just say, well, you know, take this course of action and I can help you with that. So yeah, definitely thinking about that sort of default response when someone in your team tells you that they're stuck or frustrated. It's really, you've probably never actually stopped and thought about that before. And now's the time to really stop and think about how you're responding to that. What is that automatic sort of reflex? Just to really say to you, take that away and have a think about that. Maybe just jot down in your workbook, perhaps a time when somebody has come to you with an issue and you've automatically kind of gone to that default of either asking more questions, as you rightly said, Karen, or, you know, whether or not you tend to go into that default of how can I help solve it, like Isabella was talking about. So maybe just keep a note of that. The good news is whatever your reaction is, it's actually okay, because you are who you are. And each of us are individuals and we've all got different styles, and our colleagues tend to work out, you know, how we operate, and they tend to understand how we operate and communicate with us. So, you know, that's hopefully in a manner that they respond to you that's relative to your particular style. But how you respond to your colleagues also really depends on the type of leader that you are. And, you know, it's interesting how we would answer that question, because it's likely to be a response that is relative to the type of leader that you are and how we show up in our everyday lives. So we might just have a look at 6 sort of generic types of leaders. And as we go through them, I want you to just think about, is this something that relates to me? There's not a single one that would relate to you specifically. It might be that you see behaviors of any of those 6 and you think, oh, yeah, you know what, that's me. I do that a little bit, or I do that a little bit. So when you get through the 6 of them, we're just going to have a reflection on the types that you think you're related to. So the first one is the coercive style. And that style is a do what I tell you style. So this is the type of leader who works well in times of crisis, or, you know, where there are problems with workers because they tend to demand immediate compliance. So that's a coercive style. I'm sure that you guys know all about these different styles, but it's just really bringing this to the forefront of the conversation now. And another style would be the authoritative style. And this style of leader would be saying things like, you know, come with me. They tend to get people to come on their journey of their vision, and they get people saying yes to their ideas. So that's more of that authoritative style. And then you've got the affiliative style, which would be saying things like people come first. You know, they tend to want harmony in the workplace, and they're often empathetic people. They like to solve conflict, and they can form really special bonds and trust that can be a great basis for coaching. So that's a really interesting style. And the democratic style is excellent at rallying up troops and getting consensus and buy-in from others. And they tend to ask, what do you think? So these are all great questions as well. They're all open questions that you would tend to sort of ask in that type of leadership style. And the 5th one is a pace setter. So this is really sort of setting high standards of performance, and they work really well with highly motivated individuals, and they like to get results really quickly. And they'd be saying things like, do it as I do now. And then the final one would be a visionary, and they tend to be strongly positive and have lots of self-confidence. And they're also quite empathetic, and they make really, really good change makers. And they would be saying things like, you know, do what will help us reach our goals. So if you were to look at each of those styles and you could relate to one or more of those, which ones would they be? You can relate to anything within those styles. It could be more than one, as I mentioned before. You know, you often you'll find that there's different traits that come through from these different sort of leadership styles. So neither one of them is, you know, right or wrong. So the great news is that the majority of those leadership styles, whichever one you've related to, you know, they've all got traits of empathy and really great communication. They've got team leadership traits. They've got developing others, collaboration, self-control. When you look at all of those different types, they're all incredibly positive skills that help you to integrate coaching into your leadership style. A coaching style of leadership would be saying, how can I help you do it better? You know, they develop teams for the future from that current reality to the new reality, and they develop those long-term strategies to help someone really improve the performance and development for themselves. And that coaching style of leadership tends to give way to some of those traditional leadership styles that we looked at earlier, and is characterized more by partnerships and collaboration. So blame tends to give way to feedback and learning, and external motivators are replaced by self-motivation. And as we mentioned before, coaching is not about telling somebody how to do something. The true skill in coaching is to adopt a questioning and listening technique that can allow the other person to come to their own realizations, their solutions, their actions. And it takes patience and a conscious awareness of the conversation that's taking place in order to do that. So does that make sense to everybody? Coaching is the act of partnering with that other person, and it's a thought-provoking and creative environment that you enable, which inspires others to maximize their potential for their personal and their professional lives. So I'm going to repeat that. Coaching is the act of partnering with another person in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. Now, this does require a shift in your mindset, which can take, as you all know, I'm sure, up to 3 months to develop, because you have to constantly practice these things. And that's okay. You can just be practicing it in your everyday conversations or when you're doing formal reviews with people. It really doesn't matter, but you just need to be mindful of the change of the conversation, and you can bring that into the corridor conversations as you go. But it's just a new way of really programming your mind to have that conversation in a different way. And when you bring that coaching into your leadership style, you enter into a dance. By that, what I mean is you get in tune and you get in rhythm and in the same space as that partner that you're working with, the team member that you're working with and who you're coaching. So working out that mutual language so you can dance in harmony is really crucial. And what I mean by that is getting to a point where you really, really understand what the other person is saying. So if they tell you, like we said before, that they're frustrated and stuck, you need to peel back that onion. And Isabella mentioned this, Karen mentioned this before. She asks more questions. It's exactly right. You start to ask more questions so that you can unpeel the onion and you can find out what does it actually really mean when they say I'm frustrated or I'm stuck? What does it really mean to them? We can just create our own perception of what it means by our own life experiences. But as I said before, this isn't our journey. It's not our agenda. It's theirs. So it's really important to understand exactly what it is that they mean when they say they're frustrated and stuck. So the way that they're feeling could stem from all sorts of root causes. And as you work with them, they'll have these realizations that they'll say, oh, actually, you know what? I'm feeling frustrated or stuck because of this event, or because of that assumption that I made. And I feel this way. And then, you know, as you start working with them, they start to realize that there's different ways of addressing their own internal conflict, but they can only be coming up with themselves, because as they dig deep and they say, yeah, frustrated and stuck really means this to me because of these causes, and then they can unwind it and they can work out how to resolve those. But you can't tell them that answer. So once you can drill down to that level of detail and build that trust with the team member, they can start to rebuild themselves with a different perspective on the situation. And so the dance begins, and you go step by step together in that same language. And then you just sit back and you just observe as the change starts to take place. So it's really, really powerful. And it's quite rewarding when you see that change happen. And everyone goes, oh my God, I just didn't realize that. And oh, I've had this aha moment. And you just see this, their faces light up and you realize that they've just had this absolute breakthrough. It's just so incredible. But in a minute, I'm actually going to get you to practice some of this. I'm going to just put you into pairs. I'm going to preempt this, first of all, with an acknowledgement that coaching is not something that you can just automatically adopt. It's a skill that takes practice. And once you've mastered the skill, you're going to be blown away by the powerful impact that it has. Honestly, it's why I do what I do, because the realizations that others come to and the empowerment and confidence that they gain, it just gives me goosebumps. And I assure you, you'll get the same feeling when you work with people and have the same results. The impact on their performance, their happiness in the workplace, bringing happiness in the workplace is such a crucial and important part to everybody in this group. It has a massive impact on that as well. So before we start, I just want to share something with you, because when I trained to be a coach, which was over a decade ago now, I found two of the most difficult and challenging skills that I had to learn were, first one was refraining from telling people how to solve their problems. And the second one was to remain completely non-judgmental. And look, I don't assume any of you to be judgmental in terms of throwing your opinions on people, but I talk about judgmental even from a facial expression. So I don't mean to sort of put that into a negative context at all, but it really did sort of play out in an experience that I had. So when your team member is in a coaching scenario with you, they're following their own agenda, as I mentioned. So it's critical that you don't divert them off that path. They're going through a process of self-discovery. And if you place an influence on that path, you're going to deprive them of the true benefits of your coaching. Now, I'm going to give you an example. So if you were with me at this particular time, I was doing my training at the Institute of Executive Coaching and Learning in Sydney. And it actually was a really lovely environment. It was a really cold day. And in their training room, they've got wooden panels around the walls. And it felt like a library kind of setting. And anyway, we're sitting in there, and it just felt like a really, really comfortable space. It felt like home to me. And I was working with these amazing people, and we all got partnered up, a little bit like you're going to be in a minute. And I got partnered up with a guy called David. And David started to talk to me about his dreams and aspirations. And he said to me, I'm looking at building a retreat in Bali, and I want that to be a well-being retreat, and I want to bring all my coaching into that environment. And his wife, I think, did something similar. And he said to me, it's going to be luxurious, and it's going to have lots of greenery around it. It's going to have trickling water, and there's going to be tranquility all around. So you can imagine, I'm like going, wow, this is amazing. I'm just listening to it. I'm getting sucked into this. I felt really relaxed right there. I'm almost like booking my ticket. And then I let out this loud sort of wow. And when I said wow, what it meant to me was, wow, what an amazing place, what an amazing plan, and how incredible is this? How fantastic is this? I was like really excited for him. But what David heard was, wow, why would you possibly want to do that? How risky? What if you lose everything? So it was really interesting, because his fears were coming out in the response to my wow. And I had shattered all of his dreams right there in that moment. And I hadn't intended to do that at all. I was like 100% behind what he did. But what was going on in his head, in his agenda, was obviously some fear that this wasn't going to be successful. And by me saying wow, completely shattered everything for him. So when I debriefed that, I was really devastated to hear that what I thought in my own agenda was this expression of encouragement was actually interpreted by David in a completely different way, and I'd impacted his vision completely. So you can see the power of the conversation that can take place and what that can do to the other person. Thank goodness that was in my training. I don't do that with my clients today, and I don't make those same mistakes, but it's actually really easy to just be so excited in that moment. So what I'm saying is that coaching requires that really strong self-discipline and self-control, and it's almost expressionless. So this is not because you're disinterested in the other person. If you don't sort of show any wow or, expressions on your face, you can be attentive, you can be listening authentically, and you can nod and everything. But if you smile or if you show some other expressions, it can really send the other person off course. You've really just got to try and keep that natural expression. So these are some of the tips I'm kind of sharing with you now. So we've touched on refraining from telling your partner how to solve the problems, to remain completely non-judgmental, and remember that it's your partner's agenda, not yours. So let them talk. Practice self-control and be almost expressionless. Listen authentically and remember it's that partner's agenda. Again, repeating that, the partner's agenda, not yours. So let them talk. So these things are all in your workbook, so you can, make some notes as you go, but also you can reflect on this later and we'll share the slides. But these are some of the key things just to really take away with you now. So what I will do is I'm going to ask you to partner up again. So let me just explain what we're going to do. If you can see the screen here, we're going to do a role play and you'll have 5 minutes each. And one of you is going to be the coach. So they're going to ask the question that the coach is asking in the script. And the other person is the team member, I've called them the coachee, and they're going to answer the question as it is in the script. And then I just want you to observe what's happening as those questions and answers are going through and what your automatic kind of urge to ask as a question would be, but stick to the script and see how you feel with that. Coach asks the coach questions, she asks the coachee questions.
And we're following the script.
Following the script, yeah.
Okay.
It's strange because you'd be like, well, why am I reading this? But I want you to be thinking about when those questions are coming up, how is that feeling for you?
Okay.
Now, are you feeling discomfort in any way? Because this is a normal kind of a coaching conversation.
Okay.
So I want you to be able to get to a point where you can feel comfortable with this.
Thanks so much for meeting me. I am just feeling really stuck and I don't know what to do.
I'm sorry to hear you're feeling like this. When you say the word stuck, what do you mean by that?
It just feels like I don't know how to move forward in my role.
Okay, and what else does stuck mean?
Well, I just feel frustrated.
Okay.
And I think I feel like I'm not valued.
Okay, so I hear you're feeling stuck, which means you feel like you don't know how to move forward in your role and you feel frustrated because you don't feel valued. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what else does stuck mean to you?
I just feel like I have no one to talk to. I don't feel heard.
Okay. Is there anything else?
No, I think that's really it. That's it, really.
Has there been a time when you didn't feel stuck?
Yes, I can.
And what was happening to you at that time?
Well, I was working in a new role and I really wanted to get a promotion. My manager recognized what I was doing well and encouraged me to learn some new tasks, which I did. And after the next 6 months, I was given more responsibilities.
And how did that make you feel when you received those additional responsibilities?
I felt worthy, trusted, and heard.
Can you think of one thing that is different from that time when you didn't feel stuck to how you're feeling today?
Yes, we had a smaller team and it was easier to communicate with our leader.
So what do you think you might be able to do differently in your current situation that might help you feel unstuck?
I could ask for more regular meetings with my manager and talk about what I would like to accomplish and ask for their support.
Great. And what else?
I could look at the other job opportunities in the organization and see if I can apply.
Great. And anything else?
I could ask my friend in another department how she or he got their promotion.
Okay. So there's a few things that you've identified there that might help you feel unstuck. Which of those do you feel most comfortable doing, and by when?
Well, I have a meeting with my manager next week, so I will take the opportunity to talk to them about how I feel and what I would like to accomplish.
When's that meeting?
Next Tuesday.
Okay, so if we touch base next Tuesday, will you be willing to talk with me about how the meeting went?
Absolutely.
How are you feeling now as it relates to feeling stuck?
I feel like a weight has been lifted and I have some clarity on how to move forward.
That's great. Well done. I look forward to hearing from you next Tuesday. Welcome back. You're all smiling. Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations. And thanks for stepping into that role play. Sometimes it can be so feel so staged and uncomfortable, but I'm really keen to hear what you thought about that. Does anybody want to just share what they were feeling?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I find it interesting how I was the coachee first, and it felt like, I guess, the coach was asking questions, not really giving any direction, and the coachee just got there themselves and sort of, felt like a weight had been lifted off their shoulders by really just thinking it through and getting there in their own way. And Bella and I only got to have a quick chat at the end, but she raised how uncomfortable she felt in the coach role because she felt like she was asking, the same question repeatedly, and it felt quite awkward. But then when she was in the coachee role, it felt really different for her because she kind of, had a better perspective of how you were just leading the person there in their own way. So it was really interesting.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic feedback. And you're right, because it's sort of, and the what else, and what else, and what else. That's the part where you're peeling back the onion. And it was probably quite rushed because you're kind of just reading the questions. But in real life, you'd probably just sort of sit there and you'd have a little bit of a pause for a second and you'd hear the answer, and then you'd sort of be, and what else? You give them the space again to think again. And as they start digging deeper and deeper and deeper, it's called laddering down. As they get deeper and deeper, you start to get to the bottom of that dance. So you get to the absolute crux of what it is that's really making them feel the way that they're feeling. So it's really good that you've experienced that, because being that coach and asking those questions, it does feel awkward. It's so unnatural. It's such an unnatural space. But yet on the other side, you can see how powerful it is, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Anything else that you want to share on that?
If I can, the only other thing I'd add is that I was conscious of how you'd said almost expressionless and sort of just nodding. But I noticed even as the coach, when asking it, the different affliction I put on the words, it can make it sound like, is there anything else? As if you got the answer wrong the first time. So can you give me more? So trying to be conscious of how I ask that in a more mellow tone.
Yeah, that's right. Alison, how about you guys? How did you go?
So I was the coach, and like Isabella, I did feel awkward continually asking those questions and saying the word stuck over and over again. So yeah, I was conscious trying to mix that up a bit. But Karen actually made a good point when we were discussing it later, that it's also very, you tread a fine line between sounding a little bit patronizing, so how do you feel, or how did that make you feel, or what do you think? And I think that's always a struggle in my role, particularly if I was to do this. The other point we were talking about was, I guess, knowing when to bring this sort of coaching style in when people are usually coming to you for answers. They're coming to you because they're frustrated, and they want, if you keep asking them these questions, they can get frustrated at you. And obviously this was a script and the person had all the right answers and some great examples and everything, but in real life it doesn't always happen. It's usually more, I don't know, can't remember.
And then there's different techniques that you can bring into that. So if it's, I understand that you don't know and you can't remember, and you're repeating the things back to them because then they know you're listening to what they're saying, which is why, in one of those questions, it was, so I understand that you're feeling stuck and it's making you feel like this and feel like that and feel like that. So you're clarifying and repeating things back to them. So they're getting that comfort. They're hearing it from you out loud, and they're getting that comfort that, yes, that's right. And then you can still say, is there anything else? Because as you're repeating it to them, sometimes they'll come up with something else again. And they might say, actually, you know what? No, it doesn't make me feel frustrated. It makes me feel angry. And they might say something completely different again. And when, when there are scenarios like that, sometimes this is where we haven't got time tonight, but we were going to touch on the strengths part of it, but you all would have received that strengths document beforehand. So when you know the strengths of the individual or the strengths of yourself, you can then talk about, so I noticed that you mentioned here that tenacity is one of your strengths, but you're feeling very frustrated. What is one of the strengths that you could possibly use in this scenario that can help you get past that frustration? Well, I note that you talk about these strengths. Which one of those might be useful in this situation? It's not something that you can learn in a half an hour session, but it's something that you can continue to practice. So yeah, it's interesting feedback. I think it can still be relevant. You can slip it in without somebody knowing they're in a coaching session, but you just change up the questions a little bit. And I've got some examples to show you around that. Karen, was there anything you'd like to add?
Nothing in particular. It's really, as Alison was saying, in an HR role, you're so used to giving your view or fixing, coming up with solutions, that to sit and passively listen without any emotion or any sign of what you think inside, that's definitely more of a challenge for me being a coach. And I understand it, and I get the sort of way you need to probe, but to resist the urge to give advice, give direction in some way, I think will be the thing that I would need to work on.
That's right. And look, you've all gone through this session now, so you can actually practice on each other as well. You can call each other, hey, I've got this scenario. What do you think? And as I said, I'm going to give you some tips. But Jacqueline, was there anything that you wanted to add at all, or as an observer?
No, I mean, I was the coachee, and yeah, I hadn't, probably similar to Karen, I hadn't appreciated just how sort of hands-off a coach actually is, and letting the coachee in some way, you sort of will not guide them, but let them sort of come to a sort of solution or resolution themselves, and just listen to them, which was what I thought was, and definitely in that scenario you can see that quite clearly playing out.
And as you said, look, it's all about the questions, it's all about being non-judgmental, it's about avoiding the other person's issues, solving their issues or telling them what to do, and it's all about their agenda. So you're really that other person's guiding star to help them reach that true potential and enable them to go from that current reality to the new reality. And it can happen in one conversation. This is actually really, really incredibly powerful. But what I will do before we wrap up is I'm going to share with you some other examples of different scenarios, and I'll run through them quickly. But as I said, I'll give you the slides, and I think it might be in your workbook as well, so you can refer back to those. I'll just pop onto that. If you're reviewing with a team member, maybe why some actions haven't been completed, these might be some of the questions that you would like to ask. These again are open questions. How did you prevent yourself from completing the action? What did you choose to do instead of your action? What was your competing priority? And what can you learn from this? If the same challenges arise again, what would you do? Who else can you call on for support? What else can you call on for support? And what else do you want to discuss? Are there other things that can get in the way? I'm working with you here. I'm understanding what your scenario is, and I'm drawing out the questions with you. And what would it take for you to make this happen? How could you break this down into smaller or more manageable steps? What's the pain for you by not achieving this goal? When specifically will you do the actions? What day and times you'll be making them accountable? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, how likely are you to complete those actions? How are you going to feel once you have completed those actions, and what will others be saying when you have completed those? So they're also really insightful. And I think if you even think about yourself receiving that question, what would that be bringing up for you? It really starts to tap into that unknown space and the area that you really need to be thinking about. Then we've got creating accountability. So some of the questions around that might be, how would you like to be held accountable? How will I know that you have completed a task? Who needs to know to make sure the task is done? What actions didn't you take that led to this situation? Who could you ask for to support you? What do you need to ask for help with? And are you willing to make a contract with me? If so, what would that look like? So again, you're putting all that onus back onto the individual without judging them, but you're putting the power back to them and making them accountable to themselves. And then, of course, it's also really important to celebrate success. When you have success within your team, or you're talking to somebody and you want to celebrate that success, these are some of the questions that you could ask. Again, instead of not, oh, I recognize that you did this year. Actually, what are the biggest achievements that you believe you've made this year? What are you most proud of? And what have you achieved that has surprised you? What are other things that you're proud of? What steps have you made towards larger goals that you need to acknowledge yourself for? And is there anything you think you failed at that you would like to acknowledge? And what will you do to celebrate, recognize, and acknowledge your achievements? So these are all really powerful questions to ask somebody to, again, help them realize that they have actually accomplished those achievements. So they are in your book. I do actually have a product that's called Coach in a Box. It's designed for when you're coaching managers, when you're coaching leaders, when you're coaching females, or when you're coaching entrepreneurs. And there's 50 questions in each of those segments as well. So again, what are the questions that I need to ask in the right moment, in the right scenario? And it might be a corridor conversation. It might be over a coffee. And as you've practiced these more and more, you'll just pull out little nuggets of questions that you know are really applicable for that moment in that particular time. So it doesn't have to be structured like we just went through the role play. You can just start to learn the types of questions, bearing in mind, I just need to ask those open questions that are going to get the individual speaking. I mean, have you ever been in a situation with your team members where you might have asked that kind of question and you've been surprised about what's come back for you? Or anybody been experiencing anything like that? If you've experienced that, what has happened for you? What do you think has been really good about that?
I think as a leader, giving someone else the floor almost is really important, so asking them what they think about something, how they think they would do it, because often people will look to you as the leader to have the answers for them. I think you mentioned that earlier, Cindy, and it's almost a deferential thing, isn't it, where they look to you and kind of perhaps don't want to put their view forward because they think that's not the right thing to do, that's not the polite thing to do, but actually giving them permission, almost not in a patronizing way, but just say, look, I don't have all the answers, I'd love you to tell me, I'd love you to tell me what you think. And some of this stuff about like what you're most proud of or biggest achievements would tend to be, for me, more of an annual review type situation or a mid-year review. I wouldn't be asking those things very regularly. I might, if they're doing a project, I'd say, oh, what do you think is the learning point from it? I like asking things like that.
Yeah.
What do you think we could do differently next time? Because I think for me, that's a continuum that we're always working on as a team.
Yeah.
Right, this went really well, I'm really happy about it. What did you enjoy? What did you like? But what do you think we should do differently next time? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Feels a bit more real to me anyway.
Yes. Yeah. It sounds like you're already really in tune with that type of questioning. It's really about how you can continue to practice that in other conversations where you feel you really want to get other people to take accountability for themselves and for the various different, aspects that you're talking about in various different scenarios.
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah, excellent.
Just a comment from me, what stood out in the first couple of questions was the focus on what's prevented them themselves in doing things or what they've done themselves. It's a more personal focus. Whereas I think I sometimes be a bit general and will say, well, what has prevented you, or whereas this is more a focus on how they've contributed to the outcome.
But what has prevented you is also okay, because it might be what are the things that have got in the way for you, and that might be interpreted as a personal thing, way for you personally, but it could still be what has got in the way for you in your team. And it might be, well, we've had problems because I was hoping that my manager would have broken through some of the barriers that were preventing my team from being able to move forward with this project, and that wasn't happening. So then when you can go into questions, well, so where have you had experiences before where your manager has been able to break through those barriers? What worked out for you? What was your communication with that manager? Maybe what was their style? How have you seen others break through those barriers with that manager? So you can open up questions like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about them personally. It depends what they're coming to you as with the problem. But you can say, you know, who else can help you? What else can help you? Who could you call upon to help you? Who has done well in the past that you could go speak to that could help you? That sort of thing. So there can be the whats as well, as well as the personal thing. So, I mean, there's hundreds of questions that you could be asking, but they're all relative to the different times of relevance at that point in time. It's a habit. We were saying before, it's a sort of a 3-month habit change. So you kind of just got it in your mind thinking all the time, how does this need to be different?
Thank you.
Anybody else got any other thoughts or observations?
No, so I just have one question, which is, at what point does it kind of come into play how coachable someone is, in terms of looking at, like, the coachee in the example is very forthcoming to kind of keep saying what stuck is, but what happens when you sort of meet someone that says, like, well, stuck is stuck? How do you, like, is there a way to break through that, or do you coach by stealth, or what's kind of
so if they say, well, stuck is stuck, and you say, well, describe stuck to me. And if they say, well, stuck is just stuck. Okay, so talk me through a scenario where you are actually stuck. Let's understand what's going on for you when you are stuck. And you can keep on, and then they'll say, well, I don't know, I just get frustrated, or I just feel like I can't move forward. And now you've broken into their shell. So, okay, so you can't move forward. What does moving forward look like to you? And then they might say, well, actually, I expected that I'd going through the promotion levels at 100 miles an hour, and I've only gone up 1 level. Okay, so do you think that's reasonable? Are there other people around that you've seen that have gone through it at that pace? You know, so you start to unpeel it a little bit like that.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
As the coach, you're almost like the dog with the bone, you know. You know, I'm going to crack this nut somehow. And you just gently ask more and more probing questions until you break into it. And that's when the magic really starts to work, because once you've cracked into that nut, you can now start the dance, and you can ladder down. And then they start, as they're talking about it, they start to have more and more realizations, because more often than not, the reason that they're saying, I don't know, I'm just stuck, is because they actually don't even want to go into that space themselves. They're just trying to put a barrier up themselves. And so by you helping to guide them, breaking through that, you're actually really helping them understand more about themselves so that they can put the corrections into place. So it sounds like you've all got something out of the session. It's kind of the tip of the iceberg of bringing coaching into your leadership style. Let me know. I think it sounds like the feedback you've been given is great, and I really appreciate your attention to this tonight and for participating in the role plays. And you're all saying yes, so that's amazing. So if you wanted to book in for half an hour and brainstorm anything further out with me, maybe if you've got a particular scenario that you're challenged with, or you're going into a meeting and you really want to bring this coaching part into that conversation, and you want to just talk with me through it, then feel free to just book in some time and we can do that.
Yes, thank you all. It's I really appreciate those who are attending late at night. Thanks, Isabella. I know it's really late for you. And those that have fitted it into the first thing in the morning. And it's quite a reasonable time for me. It's 10 to 7 at night. So we are going to mix it up next time. Cindy and I were looking at putting together a panel of C-level women execs to look at, what they're doing to close the gap, and what initiatives, what conversations they're having. So if any of you got any feedback on that, or you'd like to participate, I'd really love to hear from you. Also, I know Cindy has a whole suite of other topics she can speak with us about, coach us on. There we go. This is only going to be as good as what we all put in. So I'd really appreciate it. I'm happy to facilitate it, get it all happening, but I need your ideas. I need to know what you want to get together and discuss. Let me know. Give me a call. I'm happy to chat anytime as well.
Absolutely.
And Cindy, thank you, and big cheers for doing it through antibiotics and a cold. You do look a little pale. Yeah, appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
I'm sure I speak for all of us. It's been really valuable. You've given us some great resources and more. I can just see lots of links there that I can go click on later. So thanks again.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate being with you all, and I look forward to seeing you next time. as Alison said, we'll brief you and you can send through some questions as well. And now you've all had those coaching conversations, you can start to look at how you might even practice those amongst yourselves as well, or with me. Either way, it's fine. But anyway, go ahead and enjoy the rest of your evening and your day. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time.